Welcome back to Catch Up with Chuck from the Rural Futures Institute at the University of Nebraska. I'm Chuck Schroeder. I'm Executive Director of the Rural Futures Institute. You know, when we look at thriving rural communities, we can generally see 6 common characteristics that come from a study that was done a few years ago. But those include, number 1, leadership that matters. Number 2, deliberate efforts to invite people into leadership roles and involvement in the community who in some cases might not otherwise participate. And third is a willingness to invest in the community. Well, joining me today is a friend of long standing and a guy that I'll embarrass him by saying is a genuine hero in my life. He's a fellow who has demonstrated over many years in very real world terms how those factors, leadership that matters, inviting people into the circle, willingness to invest in the community, he really shows how that works in a thriving rural community. Harry Knobbe is a business and community leader from West Point, Nebraska, Cumming County, who really has never subscribed to the notion that a small town can't be a great place to live, to work, and to build a family. So, Harry, welcome to Catch Up with Chuck.
Thank you, Chuck, and I appreciate the time to tell our story. I like to, you're doing such a great job here of telling our story, and that we can help other people, and it'll make our community grow more too.
Well, listen, your impact on your community, not only the community of West Point and Cumming County, but your broader community of the livestock industry really has been amazing. You've been a difference maker in so many ways. I want you to lay a little foundation for folks about Harry that we can't find on the internet, a little bit about your family, your connection to community, what makes you do what you do as you invest in other people.
Well, I have to say it's a little bit, it came from my dad, I think. My parents were 47 and 48 when I was born. So I had a brother that was 17 years older than me, so I traveled a lot with my dad. And my dad was always, he'd be at cattle sales, and some people wanted to buy some cattle, and he said, well, what do you want, and I'll just buy them for you, like that. And so he was a giver all the time, and I've always been, Chuck, I've always felt you can have anything in the world within reason if you let the rest of the world have what they want. And you can't gather all the wealth and everything like that and keep it for yourself, because you won't be a happy person. But anyway, so my brother got married and we moved to town when I was 8 years old. So I was one of the boys that, believe it or not, had a paper route. Our farm board had a paper route. And after high school in 1958, I didn't pass for my physicals for sports, so I always had to be active and things. And I had a paper route. I even had little things. I'd drive down the alleys in town and pick up iron and sell iron, believe it or not. 2 cents a pound. But anyway, I've always had that drive to be, was interested around the corner, over the hill, and ask people and talk to people, and to go like that. So I actually registered for college in 1958, but I went out to California that summer and to be with my uncle feeding cattle, and I was one of those roustabouts that didn't show up for college. So I never went to college. And so finally, 2 years later, my dad says, you going to be in California or you going to farm? And my dad happened to own a farm for 20 years that was bought in the 30s. And so I went on that farm in 1960, and I thought I was going to have 100 head of cattle and 160 acres. But during that time, there were just things going on so fast. We were coming down here to the university on weekends, Friday afternoon and Saturdays, and if you were an entrepreneur, farming or something, there was some workshops that were going on.
Sure.
So everybody that was at that workshop had notes at the bank. So we were serious. We weren't in college and just...
It wasn't theoretical.
Right. So it was serious, and it was free. And so in the 60s, whether it was a cattle business or row crop farming or something, there were constantly free workshops there for you. by somebody, seed corn companies and, protein people and things like this. So, and then in '66, cattle futures were coming, and I went to Chicago to just snoop around and look, and I met a guy there.
Looking over the hill one more time.
Looking over the hill one more time, and so I started an office in 1966, 7, in that time like this, and today we have 6 brokers, and we just do a pretty good cattle business. And Chuck, I really got to know you when you were with NCBA. Half my customers are from the NCBA.
Yeah, and you've been such a powerful member of that community. Well, listen, I want to think a little bit about West Point. We've so enjoyed from the Rural Futures Institute the opportunity to be in West Point, get to know a lot of people there. We've had a couple of events up there. Very unique community. But here you are. Here's an ag-based community way off the interstate. The economists that do these macro studies would say, well, gee, those are big negatives. But I look at West Point, and here's a community that has been successful not only economically, but it's been a place that has developed those quality of life factors that attract young people in a very unique way. You've been at the heart of that. Talk a little bit about what you think is unique about West Point.
Well, first of all, I've always felt this. We have 2 parochial schools, so they receive no tax money. We have we have a hospital that's not tax money. We have a rest home that's not tax money. So if we want those things to survive, we got to put some effort in it, donate some money, put some time in it, and things like this. Then on top of that, communities that have livestock, those people that have livestock don't measure how many hours a day they work. They measure equity at the end of the year. And so all of that helps to try to help yourself. And, in our county, we market about 725,000 cattle a year is what we do. And so everybody, not
It's
everybody,
legendary.
but
I mean, it
there's
really
a
is.
lot just a lot of cattle. I capitalized a little bit on that. We want people to stay at home. So I seen in the 1980s that, there was a lot of people that didn't have enough work for their offspring, for their next generation to come back. So I thought, well, we could double their operation and participate with them, and it wouldn't be any more investment we would do. So today, we partner with 18, 20 people that we own half the cattle, they own half the cattle. They have a son involved, they have some hired help involved and everything like this. And they are entrepreneurs and part of the industry. They're just as much as an entrepreneur as Main Street.
Absolutely.
Is what they are. So it takes time to develop those kinds of things, and it's been good for us. We market all their cattle for them, is what we do. They need us, and we need them.
That's been a great partnership. Well, listen, I want to get specific about Harry Knobbe's style of leadership. One of the things that I mentioned at the outset, those characteristics of thriving communities, actually came from a study of rural communities that are successful in transferring leadership from generation to generation. I happen to know the girl that did that study. And West Point was one of the communities where she did that research. And one of the key findings that is in those communities that are successful, there is a deliberate effort to invite people into leadership roles that may not otherwise see themselves as leaders, may be inclined because of their age and whatever to kind of stay outside the circle. I have watched you over and over draw those people into leadership roles, Harry, and you have a community that has very purposely said, you can't stay in the same role for 40 years. We are going to, on purpose, roll over the generations. Talk a little bit about how you go about bringing people into the circle and why you do it.
Well, I look back in the 70s. I was on the industrial board. I was chairman of the industrial board, and we would just talk about going after, we need a company here to employ 100 people or 200 people. That's too many people at one time for a whole community. I made a film in 1979 called Partners in Progress, and it was to show our people who we really are, and then we show that to people that want to come and expand their business or something like this. I believe in term limits. Now, we don't have everything in term limits in all our organizations, but term limits bring a turnover of people. There's a lot of boards where we have 9 people. So every year there's 3 new and 3 old. And finally you got more people pushing the cart than pulling the cart. And they support you. And that's like the NCBA. Chuck, I was always so impressed that the NCBA had term limits on everything. Well, 1 year. I mean, and that impressed me. And I brought that back a little bit like this. But I'm not the only person that's doing it is in town. I got friends that do it.
Sure.
One thing that we do, Irv Eismayer and I had this idea one time. We wanted to talk about things where there was no minutes, no motions, nothing like this. So we have bottom line breakfast 4 times a year. We come in at 6:15, put an idea in a bowl to talk about. At 6:30, we pull that one of those ideas out, and you talk about it for 10 minutes. All right, after 10 minutes, we go to another one. After 5 of them, after 50 minutes, we talk about what we talked about, and at in under 10 minutes, at 7:30, we're out of there. Now, the thing that I hate the most is when you go to a meeting and one person goes on and on and on about their deal. Well, we're not all interested in that. But at the end of the meeting, you find out what the crowd is interested in. We had the Nielsen Center come out of that. We had the theater come out of that. We got a walking trail came out of that. We have a restroom came out of that. And they're all things that are being built by donated dollars. No federal funds, no grants or anything like this. If you wait too long for federal grants and government to help you, you will be behind. You will be behind everybody else.
I love that story because when you drive into West Point, you see those examples, the way the community has come together and done things. And one of my favorite Harry Knobbe stories, you were asked one time in my presence, so what's the strategic plan here? And your response was, well, we do something, we get that done, we do something else. That's our plan, and it's worked pretty good. I love that. Well, listen, thinking about the way your community functions, you have never followed sort of the classic economic development pattern of spending all your resources trying to recruit some big company. You mentioned this earlier, trying to recruit some big company to come to town that'll be a huge employer and be the economic savior of the town. You've had some businesses relocate to West Point, all right, but you and your partners in progress have, over a long period of time, really invested back in the community. When you've seen a need for a business or you see somebody trying to do something, you have kind of rallied around and invested back in them. Talk a little bit about that philosophy and how you've employed it over time.
Well, one thing that comes to my mind, in the early 80s, there was a tract of land right near West Point, 120 acres. It touched the boundary of the city. And I knew if I go to the city and buy that and have them buy it, it would take too long to process. So I just bought it. And I went to a friend of mine and I said, hey, I got this land bought. Why don't we start developing it, but we'll give it to the city. It'll happen faster we do it. So we did it. Today there's 10 acres left that's unsold. And it was just little entrepreneurs that came in or either moved from a spot in town that they needed more land, is what they did. For instance, the ready mix plant was where the Nielsen Center is. Well, they needed to be out of there. Well, we had an option for them where they could go. Too many towns go to a town or anything and said, if you will come to town, this is what we'll do. No, we got this already. If you come to town, it's there for you. In other words, the streets are paved, the sewer is in, and everything like this. So individuals have to do that. Another thing, a number of us own businesses that are partners in another thing like the motels. The motels are owned by groups of people. motels in small communities have a hard time to cash flow because they're full on the weekend, and on Mondays they have four rooms. Okay. As long as the cash flows, I have my entity that can go. But at the same time, all those things around create more. We have sales tax. We started sales tax about 7 or 8 years ago. West Point collects $650,000 a year in sales tax, and that's just by buying your milk in town and everything like this. And believe it or not, you have to tell people that. You have to tell people that, and
Sure.
So that's what makes things grow. Inviting people in, Chuck, way back with the NCBA when we were involved, it was hard to tell somebody what the NCBA was. I just brought registration for a couple. Instead of NCBA asking me for a donation, I gave them a donation through show and tell, like that.
Yeah.
So at banquets and every time when there's somebody new into town, we always are donating to the organizations. I indirectly donate to the organizations by bringing those people to the banquet.
Having them feel like they're now a part of the community.
Right.
There's an expectation that you'll come be a part of it. Well, listen, I don't want folks to think that the history of West Point has been all rainbows and unicorns. You've had your challenges over time. One of the other factors that we know always comes up in a thriving rural community is a hopeful vision backed by grit. It seems to me that indeed West Point has faced its challenges, but you've always maintained that sense of hope. Tell us how you do that.
Well, for instance, we had Tyson Foods there, and all of a sudden one morning they closed the doors and it was 230 people.
Yeah.
I guess at that time we lost 3 kids in the school. So that's how the people stayed around her. They stayed there, drove other places, but then we had a dairy operation, a dairy butter operation that expanded. They went there and things like this. And, it's going back a little bit. You have to always have raising funds. And I think that the Nielsen Center so much. It cost $5.5 million total donated. We were going to tear down the old auditorium because we thought it was obsolete. Well, there was a group of people kind of thought, well, we could have it as a theater or something. They have raised $1,800,000, and I believe it's 9 years now, have averaged 100 people per showing, and it's $5 a person to go. But the secret of it is total donated time.
Yeah.
And that group of people that came to that theater are from a mixed match of everything. It's kind of like the firemen, they're from the bank, and they're from the school teachers, and they're from like this, and they meet there, and it grows. And at the same time, it draws other people to town.
Sure. Well, it's just been a great story. Well, listen, at the Rural Futures Institute, the first of our core beliefs is that we believe in people's capacity to shape their own futures. And I just have to say, Harry, you and your family and the many remarkable people that we at the Rural Futures Institute have had a chance to get to know in West Point just personify that. And we're awfully proud to be associated with you. Anything you'd like to add today?
No, I just, Chuck, what you're doing here is going to help a lot of communities, and we're always willing to invite people to come and do a show and tell. But at the same time, it don't happen overnight.
Yeah, yeah. You've been a consistent dreamer and making things happen. Well, listen, folks, we want you to stay in touch with the Rural Futures Institute through Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and our website that we know that you'll enjoy. And please join us again next week when we're going to be talking with real people about real places that demonstrate thriving rural communities are a legitimate best choice for worthwhile living. Thank you so much for joining us.